Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is time for another update on my Palantir position and my overall stock position and portfolio position within Palantir. Palantir has been a stock that I've obviously covered very heavily, and I've been buying the stock over the past year. Started buying it mainly around, I would say, March, April 2021, when I was getting around $23. Started buying then, and I've been buying it ever since. Obviously, my stock basis was higher, similar to a lot of retail investors, because majority of my buying happened around October, November 2021, when the average stock price was $25, $26. A lot of us got caught in it. A lot of us expected it to be, well, no one expected the entire market to just absolutely crash. Maybe Michael Burry. So as a result of that, most of us had pretty high stock prices. So if we go to, wow, I just took a breath and I think something was in my throat. That was a weird sound that just happened. But Palantir is a weird stock, right? So that's what we're doing. If we go to this video that I made in January 31st, 2022, revealing my entire Palantir position and buys this month, I had a market value at the time of $20,858.25 of Palantir. I was down $15,000, down 42% of my investment. And on that day, I was up 3%. So I was up $753. And I had an average cost of $22 with about 1,600 shares, as we can see right there, 1,637 shares. So my average cost for Palantir was $22.06. Shares was 1,637 shares overall. Portfolio position about $20,000. I had concluded that I added around $6,182.37 to my Palantir position in January. Well, now we're in February, and I'm going to show how much I added to my Palantir position in February. I have not bought at all in March. I think I bought like one share in March, primarily because I'm pretty much done buying Palantir for a while. Not only is it because I'm running out of just disposable income and cash to put into Palantir, but I've averaged down. You know, I've done my work. Of course, I would like a smaller average, just like anyone would like a smaller average. But at this point, I've pretty much put in all the amount of money that I'm ready and comfortable to put into Palantir. And now we're just going to see how it plays out. I think there's significant upside for it to go, and you guys will see my average in a second, and that's the average I'm willing to live with. Obviously, I want to keep adding to my position. I just need to have a little bit more disposable income, and as that comes, we'll be able to see how we track Palantir. So let's go to the position we are at in Palantir right now. Palantir is at $11.74. When I did that video, I think it was at like 12 or 13 at the day. I think it was like $12.74. My market value is now $24,233. Today's return is about 187, so about 0.78%, and I'm down 17,000. So last month I was down 15,000. This month I'm down 17,000, obviously because the price has decreased. The reason the market value is higher is because I put more money into the stock. Average cost went down from $22.06 to $20.14. The portfolio diversity is 71% of my portfolio, so it's getting up there to be a lot. And that's why I'm also thinking of diversifying a little bit. I'm really interested in Google right now, large cap tech exposure. The stock split that's coming, I think that's going to drive up the prices. The stock split made Google a $3,000 stock. Now it's back down to like $2,600, so it's still seeming attractive. I don't see Google as a company that can stop growing, so haven't made a decision on that, but that is one of the stocks that I'm interested in to diversify my portfolio a little bit. And average cost is $20. So we got the cost down from $22 down to $20. So we brought it down a whole $2, which may not seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, now that I have 2,064 shares, for every dollar Palantir goes up, I make $2,064. It has to get back to $20 for me to make back $17,000 that I am down, which, again, I talked about the psychology of this last time. There's people that are in this stock that are down way more than you could be expecting. I mean, there are people that are down hundreds of thousands of dollars, six figures. It's just the game of when it comes to investing. If you buy before the market drops and you can't time when the market is going to drop, because if everyone could time when the market dropped, then everyone would make a lot of money, which doesn't happen. There has to be winners and losers in the market at certain moments of the market cycle. Then you have to deal with being down. And as long as you can stomach being down, in this case, $17,000 for me, which I can stomach that because of my lifestyle. I have other ways to subsidize my income, subsidize the things that I do in my life. Then it's just not the biggest deal in the world for me. In fact, one of the things I mentioned in the previous video is that when you're down this much money, it forces you to become a stronger investor because it forces you to double down on your conviction, and either you average down or you don't average down. With something like Facebook, and we'll get back into this in a second, I was down, I think, $1,000 on my investment in Facebook. I bought pre-earnings, 325, dropped to 240 the day of earnings came out, and then I finally sold at 216 because I didn't have this ability to stomach buying more of Facebook, right? Like I couldn't, I didn't feel good about it. I didn't want to get my average cost down to like 210 or 212 and put in another couple $1,000 because I didn't have the same level of conviction. Now, I bought Facebook with a strong level of conviction. After earnings came out, my conviction thesis changed, not primarily based upon the reason I bought it. Like the stock price, it did whatever. It's like you can't control that. But I started realizing the opportunity cost of that capital in my higher conviction plays was just immense, right? Especially given I think Palantir can touch $20 relatively within the next 6-7 months. I think that's possible if the market reverses and they have a good quarter as well to support it. So we're going to see what happens. So it was just a question of opportunity cost of capital. I think this is actually what Kathy Wood did with Palantir. She has higher conviction in Roku. I don't think that's the best pick in the world. That's her conviction. So she got rid of Palantir and she put it into Roku. So it's just a question of opportunity cost of that capital. And ultimately, if you can stomach being down that much money because you know it's going to come back up eventually, then you want to double down on that position and get an even sweeter average like I did with $20 versus $22 and be able to, get ready for when it ends up doing the run. So let's get into how much I bought on Palantir in February. So we're going to pull up the calculator. Calculator is going to go here, and this guy's going to go here. All right. So first buying of Palantir was at $142.95. So let's do that. Plus $41. Then we have 100, 1,000, and 500. So I'm going to add 1,600 right there. Then we are going to add 150, 200, so that's 350, 450, plus 450. Then we have 700. We're going to add 700 there. Then this 2,200 one that you see, this was my Facebook money. So I cashed out on Facebook, and this was all during earnings primarily. So this is when I started buying during the dip on earnings. Now, obviously, it's dipped even more since earnings, but $12, $11, it's not like the craziest thing in the world for me. Then we have 289. That was a purchase. And then we have one more share at 1092. And I bought that so I could tweet that I could tell my grandkids that I bought it at $10. There we go. $5,433.87 was spent on Palantir in the month of February compared to $6,182 that was spent in the month of January. So if we add this up together, so far in the year 2022, I've spent $11,616.24 on Palantir stock. And that is the amount of money that I've spent. Now, you've got other people, like Sachin. He's a friend of the channel. A lot of videos of him on the channel as well from our weekly podcast that we do on Fridays around 10, 11 p.m. where we cover all things Palantir. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or potentially millions he has in Palantir, but he's down likely 6 figures. So I'm down around 5 figures. 11,000 was the amount I've spent over the past two months. I'm pretty much done. I'm pretty much done. Not because I don't want to buy more of the stock, but because, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, just like disposable income. Like now I'm holding on to my income. I have some other projects that I'm working on, some other things that I'm doing. So I just don't really want to buy stocks that much anymore. Now it's like you kind of got to load up and sit back. Like a $20 average sucks, but if I see Palantir being a $250 stock, that's a 10x return. For me to get the average down to $10, I would have to put like another 40, 50 grand into the company, which neither do I have nor do I want to do at this moment, right? It's just like not worth it to me. So I was buying at $25 because I saw immense potential in Palantir. A lot of retail investors and institutions were buying at $20, $23, $24. This massive market rundown is not a Palantir specific situation, especially because their revenue just, their growth rate over the past year, we saw in their Q4 earnings, 41% year over year. They're growing substantially well. They're going to get a lot of more deals in the governmental sector, as per what Sham said. And like you kind of start putting the dots together. You're like, this is going to be a fine stock. But trying to feel FOMO because your average is not $12, $13 based on people who are getting in right now is dumb, right? Like the reason institutions and investors were buying at $22, $23 is because there was massive upside on the stock, even at that price. And if you do any really DCF model, the fair implied value of it is around $22, $23. Even Morningstar has a fair value of it at around $31. So like it's to me, getting it down to a $20 average, I'm perfectly fine with. I'm like, all right, Palantir 10 years from now, I'll be able to say I got my average at $20. I'm good with that because 10 years from now, either it's 100, 150, 200. That's a massive return on your investment. $20. And I honestly see that happening sooner than 10 years from now, just given the growth trajectory of the potential of the company. 50, 60% growth rates should happen within the next 2-3 years if they can execute correctly on their thesis. For me, a $20 stock at an average, 2,000 shares of that $20 stock, I'm really comfortable with seeing that investment play out over the next couple of months. So I'm definitely not buying more for a while. We'll see what happens. Now, if the price were to get even lower, it's like $6, $7, that's when my mind would change. That's when I'm like, well, I think that there is a asymmetrical upside here and that some money needs to be spent now on Palantir. Maybe I need to liquidate some other positions or do what else I need to do. But as of now, this is my strategy. And again, this is the life of someone who chooses to pick stocks and not picks ETF funds. And if you've done a ton of due diligence and a ton of analysis on a stock that you've picked, then you have to make a decision. And when you make that decision, you have to stick with that decision. You have to have conviction in that decision, and you have to see it play out over the long term. And as long as you're putting money into a stock that you can afford to deal with or afford to lose in the short term, then I think that's totally fine. Now, a lot of people have been asking about selling covered call, cash covered puts, buying leaps, et cetera, et cetera. I think those are all phenomenal strategies. I am not doing any of those because, to be honest, I have a lot of other things I do throughout the day, and I just don't have the time to worry about a lot of that stuff. I'm getting more and more educated on that stuff, but I also just don't have the mental stamina to deal with any of that stuff right now. Like I just have a lot of stuff going on. So for me, the easiest thing to do is like buy shares and relax. Now, when you're selling covered calls, really you can make a lot of money off selling covered calls, but you have to have a heavy position as well. And I don't have the heaviest position in the world. Now, granted, it could reduce my cost premium, but at this moment, that's just not one of the strategies I'm doing because, again, I just have a lot of stuff to do throughout the day. So I buy shares, let it sit, and overall, we'll see what happens in the long term. Thank you guys for watching. Looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you in the next one.